Before we begin, make sure you subscribe, because the story you're about to hear was so disturbing, the footage was locked away for years. Like, comment, and don't watch this one alone. It started with a customs report, a routine shipment arriving in Singapore from a small village off the coast of Mexico. The manifest listed vintage collectible dolls, 57 in total, sealed in wooden crates. But when dock inspectors opened the first box, they found only one doll inside, wrapped in yellowing lace, its porcelain face cracked, one eye missing. The rest of the crates were empty. The air around it smelled faintly of salt and something older, like rotting flowers. That doll was sent to the National Heritage Museum for preservation. Curator Evelyn Tan, a 34-year-old art historian, was fascinated. The label on the doll's neck read, La Isla de las Muñecas. She'd heard of the place, a haunted island in Xochimilco, Mexico, where hundreds of dolls hung from trees to appease a little girl's spirit who had drowned decades ago. Most tourists left shaken, swearing they saw the dolls move. Evelyn dismissed the legends. Her work was about facts, not fears. But from the first night, something felt wrong. The museum's climate sensors picked up fluctuations only near the glass display. Security footage showed faint movements, a shift in the doll's head by a few degrees, a twitch of its hand. The staff thought it was vibration from nearby construction. But Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that the doll's remaining eye was following her. When she turned the lights off, its glass reflection glimmered faintly, as if blinking. 3 days later, the night guard, Amir, failed to clock out. When his supervisor checked the CCTV, his patrol seemed normal until 3:14 a.m., when the feed glitched. In that brief static, the doll appeared to be standing on the floor instead of its... The museum was sealed by sunrise. Police tape fluttered weakly in the humid air while technicians carried the doll away in a padded containment box. Detective Marcus Lee stood at the center of the exhibit floor, staring at the open glass case. The dust prints were still there, 5 small fingers smudged in a slow downward drag. Forensics says no adult could have made these, his partner muttered. Marcus didn't reply. He was already thinking about the missing guard, Amir, and the strange word captured on the audio file. Evelyn arrived later that morning, pale, exhausted, clutching a folder of research. "Detective," she said quietly, "I found something about the island." Inside were faded photographs, trees hung with hundreds of decaying dolls, their eyes hollow and their limbs tangled in vines. The man who collected them was Don Julian Santana. He claimed he heard the spirit of a drowned girl whispering to him. He hung dolls to calm her, but when he died, they say his body was found floating in the same canal where she drowned. Marcus exhaled sharply. "So now the legends cross the ocean," he said. "Someone's trying to make it real." But that night, the investigation took a darker turn. The forensics lab reported something impossible. The doll's porcelain was cold, room temperature, but the interior wiring and stuffing registered faint heat, like a heartbeat. The technician, a veteran of hundreds of artifact analyses, resigned the next day without explanation. His final note read, "It moved. I swear it moved." Marcus pressed on, determined to strip the case of myth. He tracked the shipping records to a warehouse near the docks where the crates had first arrived. Only one man was listed under customs clearance, a Mexican expatriate named Raul Torres, who vanished 2 days after the shipment was processed. His apartment had been cleared out, save for one thing left be. The flight to Mexico City landed under a bruised dawn sky, the kind that looked heavy with secrets. Detective Marcus Lee hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. The missing curator, Evelyn Tan, hadn't been found. The museum's footage of her last moments showed her walking calmly out of the frame, then vanishing mid-hallway. No doors, no exits. Only her voice echoing faintly from the intercom system, whispering words that chilled every officer who heard them. "It's colder here." The only lead left was the source. The island where the doll came from. The police there remembered Raul Torres, the shipper. He had returned to Mexico weeks before the incident and was last seen renting a small fishing boat headed toward La Isla de las Muñecas. The same boat was found days later adrift among the canals, engine running, its seats empty. Inside was a single photograph, Evelyn, smiling with the same cracked doll on her lap. Marcus hired a local guide to reach the island. The ride took nearly 2 hours through narrow, twisting waterways lined with mangroves. As they approached, the air thickened with decay. Hundreds of dolls hung from the trees. Eyeless, limbless, their faces faded by sun and mold. Some swayed in the wind, others creaked faintly as if sighing. The guide refused to step foot on land. "This place remembers who touches its dolls," he muttered, before pushing the boat back into the canal and leaving Marcus alone. The detective moved carefully through the undergrowth, flashlight beam slicing through the murk. Then he saw it. A clearing surrounded by crooked crosses made of sticks. In the center stood an altar built of old wood, covered in dozens of tiny fingerprints drawn in dust. At its base sat the same doll from Singapore, perfectly still. Evelyn was beside it, kneeling, her eyes unfocused. "Evelyn!" Marcus called out, rushing forward. She turned slowly, a blank smile on her face. "She wanted me to bring her home," she said softly. "Now she's not alone." Marcus tried to pull her away, but something in the air felt wrong. Static, humming, charged. The ground beneath the altar trembled slightly. He looked down and froze. Buried beneath a layer of soil was a human hand, porcelain white, but with veins too detailed to be ceramic. Then another and another, dozens of small limbs half buried like roots. The dolls weren't hung from the trees anymore, they were growing out of the ground. Suddenly, Evelyn gasped and collapsed. The doll in front of her tilted its head, the crack on its face widening like a grin. Marcus stumbled backward, reaching for his radio, but the signal hissed with interference. Through the static, Evelyn's voice came again, though her lips never moved. "She's here," it whispered, layered with the sound of hundreds of faint giggles. She never left. The last thing Marcus saw before blacking out was the doll's glass eye turning, focusing directly on him. He awoke hours later on a police boat, the sun burning through the heavy clouds. The rescue team had found him unconscious near the docks, alone. Evelyn was never found. The island was sealed off, declared a restricted cultural zone. The doll, gone. 3 months later, the National Heritage Museum reopened quietly. Among its new exhibits was a small, unnamed doll, cracked porcelain, faint smile, one eye missing. Visitors said its head sometimes shifted when no one was looking, and if you stand close enough, just as the lights dim, a voice seems to whisper from inside the glass. "She took my place." If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Subscribe now, before the next doll finds a new home.